It all started 9 years ago. I just moved to South Vancouver, and the closest grocery store was in a newly developed plaza just 8 minutes away from me. And that's when I first saw her. The Golden Stump, or the Golden Tree. Now, a mentally healthy person wouldn't think twice about this stump, or spend multiple hours loitering in front of it to get this really sick-ass B-roll. And the artist who created it, well, he probably didn't want you to think too hard about it either, but we'll get to that.
But you can see, what are these beads here? These are beads of spray paint that have coagulated here in the cracks. I think the coolest thing about this piece is probably like the sheer size of it. Nice little bit of mold here, probably kickback from all the cars. There's no reason that anybody would spend time here. Look at where we are. It sort of just exists at this intersection.
Public art sort of matters to all of us, right? It's a reflection of what our communities value, an expression of our creativity, a conversation starter about our culture. So why the fuck does so much of it make me want to gouge my eyes out? And surely I couldn't be the only one bothered by it, right?
How do you feel when you see this tree?
Honestly, it's kind of ugly.
I live like right up there, and when I look down on it, it kind of looks like a foot.
I don't know. It's, I would say, kind of pointless monument. But that's just me, though. I mean,
the color is a bit strange, I must say, definitely.
Well, to be honest, I didn't even know it was a tree at first.
Go. You missed it. A little dog just took a piss here, and that's it. That's the story.
Okay, so maybe us unsophisticated peons didn't understand the significance or the beauty of the tree. Maybe it was something that only another artist could appreciate?
So because I can't put into words maybe perfectly how I feel, like how frustrated I feel by this piece of art, I invited my friend Madex out here. He does paintings and collages and really amazing art for a living, to help put into words maybe how I feel, to see if maybe he feels the same way that I feel about this piece of art.
I will look down
Okay.
until you tell me to, so.
Voila.
Magnificent. You could really feel the inspiration flowing from its spray-painted plastic appearance.
Yeah.
What is it even made out of? This is fucking concrete.
No, it's fiberglass and resin.
At least it'll be easily destroyed then.
Yeah.
Look at the way it turns into a slime green. It's just it's a horrible covering. There is only one gold, and it's real gold. Any imitation of gold is just, it never looks good. It always looks horrible. Whoever approved of it did not have very high regard of the people who will live here.
Yeah.
If this piece of art disappoints that many people, then how the fuck did it end up there? Who voted for this? How does it work? Can I paint random things in gold, call myself an artist, and get paid? After doing some research, it appears the project cost a whopping $700,000 to produce. In today's dollars, that's closer to $1.1 million. For every new real estate development in the city of Vancouver over 100,000 square feet, developers have to allocate $1.98 per square foot to an art installation. The goal here is to enhance urban spaces and ensure accessibility and equity in public art initiatives, according to the city.
Okay, so I'm gonna be totally honest here. There are worse pieces of public art. This tree, as much as it personally annoys me, which is probably more of a me thing than a tree thing, there is public art in Canada that is literally so bad that it is setting people on fire. There's a piece of public art in Calgary, this large metallic capsule. A tourist or a passerby in the community was going up to take a picture of it, and he was wearing his jacket. And as he's taking a photo of it or a video of it, his jacket starts catching on fire because the architect, the artist of this piece, and the city council that approved it didn't realize that when the sun hits it on a certain angle, it bounces off and creates so much heat that it can literally hurt and set someone on fire. Public art is created under a manufactured need to beautify spaces. The whole thing is basically a racket because the same projects go out to the same artists time and time again.
Artists and writers who catch lightning in a bottle, as our next guest does, are rare indeed.
Renowned author, you know him, you love him.
The man, the legend, Mr. Douglas Coupland.
When people see the sculpture for the first time, I kind of want their brains to liquefy and dribble out the sides of their head. I want them saying like, oh my God, there's this great big gold tree. What's it doing here? Wait, that's a hollow tree. It's supposed to be in Stanley Park, but it's gold. And I want all these sort of whole galaxy of perceptions to happen at once.
So here's the deal. Douglas Coupland's work all follows this familiar pattern. Find some piece of iconography or nostalgia, add a gimmick to it, make it out of pixels, paint it gold, plant it in a significant place, I guess, and then pitch it to the Public Works office.
And pay attention to that last part, because getting there isn't that easy. What our friend Douglas might lack in originality, he more than makes up for in an easier to measure metric. He's published 14 novels, almost exclusively focusing on themes of consumerism and nostalgia. He's an officer of the Order of Canada and the Order of British Columbia, and he's got honorary degrees from Emily Carr University, Simon Fraser University, University of British Columbia, Mount Allison University, and OCAD University. He's basically the Ash Ketchum of degrees you don't actually have to pay for.
Eevee, the evolution Pokemon.
But that's what makes him the perfect public artist.
People who know me know that I am a collector, see something, find something, trash, secondhand store, flea market, eBay, and all this subconsciousness sort of leaking out through these objects.
There's a lot to be said for really stupid ideas. This is the first show I did in Vancouver. That's Gumhead, it's me. It's like this monumental, my head, and put it in the lawn outside the Vancouver Art Gallery. And then the idea was people put gum on it and desecrate it over the summer. It was really disgusting, but it smelled great.
Douglas, you're laughing at your own words. I like that.
You either love it or hate it. You get it or you don't get it. If you're not, you're not. And if you do, you do.
Douglas Coupland doesn't care if you like his public art. And honestly, I can't even blame him for that. Why suffer or take risks in your art when the bureaucracy is your #1 customer? Buying art is one of the most personal and profound acts of self-expression an individual can engage in. When you buy a piece of art, you're embracing a story, a vision, and a feeling that deeply resonates with you. It's almost always a shared, intimate understanding of beauty, struggle, joy, or curiosity between you and the artist, or whoever you're purchasing from. When the government buys or commissions art, it can never be this way, because they're compelled to acquire it as part of a cultural or policy obligation. It's a transactional relationship designed to represent collective values rather than personal ones. And that doesn't mean that all public art has to be bland, mediocre, or downright bad, but it's a different sort of relationship, one that's much easier to exploit. A system where the buyer, aka the government, is forced to eventually compete in mental gymnastics to justify their purchases, because they're not using their money, they're using yours. There's no better example than the Beaufort Towers.
We see this as the gateway to the city, and when people are leaving the city, it's the gateway to the mountains. The stones float in these steel cribs that have been built. They're a really interesting connection back to this land, the immemorial times of the land. The idea was to bring this sort of tower and rock together. And those 4 towers relate to the Blackfoot cultural symbolism that talks about the 4 elements, the 4 stages of life, the 4 seasons. You know, it's a pretty big challenge.
All this dogshit public art got me thinking. Is there something more nefarious at play? We used to make sculptures of gods, animals, people, with cheeks so real you could reach out and touch them. Now we make whatever the hell this is. But this sort of contemporary art is not an emergent natural phenomenon. It's completely fabricated.
During the Cold War is really when minimalism and this sort of like postmodern art really took off, and it really was co-opted by the CIA.
In the onset of the Cold War, the CIA recognized a growing appeal that communism and its tenets had for intellectuals and artists in the West. The American public had largely rejected and despised modern art in the prior decades, but the CIA saw its potential for something greater.
The Soviet artists were looking at the West and seeing this liberty to make almost anything with too little to no amounts of effort, and they were seeing this stuff propped up and celebrated in massive museums, in big art galleries, and it made them feel demotivated. It made them feel that I am stuck here in the Soviet Union creating this very rigid art, and there are people that are making millions of dollars and finding freedom in basically creating almost the most basic stuff possible.
Years later, it was revealed that the CIA paid millions of dollars to prop up these artists. The Congress for Cultural Freedom, founded by the CIA, hosted the New American Painting in every major European city between 1958 and 1959, with timeless and evocative pieces like this. They say one man's scribbles is another man's American propaganda. And guess what? It f***ing worked. Tom Braden, first chief of the CIA's International Organizations Division, said this: "We wanted to unite all the people who were writers, who were musicians, who were artists, to demonstrate that the West was devoted to freedom of expression and to intellectual achievement, without any rigid barriers as to what you must write and what you must paint," which was what was going on in the Soviet Union. I think it was the most important division that the agency had, and I think it played an enormous role in the Cold War.
This art used to be a representation of like fierce individuality, but now it is the status quo. This art is everywhere. And what it amounts to is the death of individuality in artwork. There's a death of risk-taking, there's a lack of aspiration, there's a nihilism to this art.
The Golden Tree isn't without any context or story behind it. It's a replica of a 400-year-old Western cedar, one that exists on the other end of Vancouver in Stanley Park. I thought I would come full circle by finally visiting it.
So I am finally here at the real tree, and the first thing that I think about is that it wasn't meant to be preserved in one state forever. Little shrubs are growing out of it, bugs are clearly eating away at it, the storm has knocked massive chunks out of it. People care a lot about this tree, and there's thousands of photos of it, but a duplicate is never going to capture that. Especially not on the corner of an intersection buried by the shadow of a SkyTrain line. We have so much creative energy in this city. I refuse to believe that superficial recreations of iconography is the best our city has to offer in terms of artistic talent and making our public spaces worthwhile. We're going on hour 11 at this stump. You would think that after 11 hours, I would feel something, and I still don't. Ask me what I really think of the Golden Tree. I think it represents what happens when you task bureaucracy with creating beautiful things. You get mandated lack of elegance that needs to be packaged in fancy words and justifications and stories to give the beauty some weight. Am I mad at Douglas Coupland for making this? I don't know anymore. I don't think I am as much. I think I'm more upset at a system that encourages haphazard and unthoughtful placement of things like this.
Alright, did you really think I was going to send you on your way after 15 minutes of shit-talking art? We're going to fix this problem eventually, but first, we're going to need some rules.
All right, Douglas Coupland, I also have a degree from UBC, and unlike you, I actually had to get $50,000 in student debt to afford it. Speaking of which, can you guys please subscribe to my YouTube channel? This cost a lot, and the economy kind of sucks right now. Anyways, enough asking for handouts. What am I, a fucking commie? I wrote 7 rules on how to improve public art in your city, and here they are. Rule number 1. Put art in places it can actually be appreciated. You know that iconic charging bull sculpture in New York? They put it on Wall Street for a reason. 20,000 people a day come from around the world just to get a photo grabbing its nutsack. That's called good city planning. Rule number 2, thou shalt not use fake gold. The Japanese have had their civilization ravaged by earthquakes, nuclear bombs, fire-breathing dinosaurs, and they still find the time and money to wrap their monuments in real gold leaf. So no more of this spray paint bullshit. Go big or go home. Rule number 3, bigger isn't better. Some art is cool when it's massive, like this guy and his really toned cheeks. But we don't need the world's largest paddle, the world's biggest nickel, or the world's largest apple. Or at least if you're gonna make those things, don't use taxpayer money to do it. Some of us want affordable housing. Rule number 4, no more creepy child statues. Stop. I don't know who you are, I don't know why you're doing it, but stop making child statues, please. Rule number 5, be creative. Life is already full of things that numb the mind, the heart, and the soul. We don't need our art to do it too. The best things in life, they always evoke that emotion of how the fuck did they pull that off? And I think good art can do that too. If it costs a little bit more to make and maybe we get a little bit less of it, I think that's a sacrifice that most people would be willing to make. Rule number 6, go out and make it. You don't need City Hall to approve it. Sometimes the best art is far outside of our sight. It's not made with taxpayer or corporate money. It's made from blood, sweat, and tears. And if we can start to celebrate that more in our homes, with our friends and families, I think we'll start getting a little bit less of this sort of thing. And rule number 7, civil disobedience. Because if all else fails, you can always participate in a peaceful act of civil disobedience. Oh yeah.